there is McDonald's workers striking all over this country, and you have the original Fight for 15 progressive, who's been with fast food workers for years. He's out on the picket lines with them. And then you have a lot of Johnny-come-lately Fauxgressives. Somebody left in the comments for me to start calling them the Fauxgressives rather than the faux progressives. So then you have some of the Fauxgressives out there trying to get some of that Bernie juice. So let's hear Bernie talking. Oh, the McDonald's workers, they are protesting. I saw Dallas, I saw Chicago, I saw Flint, I saw Detroit. We saw, I think I saw Washington too. It's 12 cities around the country. And Bernie was out there talking to the peeps, like always. So let's hear what Bernie had to say, talking to some of the McDonald's workers that are striking. And they are striking not only for $15 minimum wage, but there is a sexual harassment epidemic going on in these fast food chains, McDonald's and others, where female workers are being sexually harassed in many ways through their managers. There's also awful working conditions at these McDonald's restaurants all over the country. So let's hear what Bernard Sanders had to say.
And hello, workers all over this country are standing up and fighting for justice. And let me tell you guys, what Adriana just said is absolutely true. You are here years ago when people talked about raising the minimum wage from $7.25 an hour, where it is right now, to $15 an hour. We were told that we were crazy, we were extreme. It will never happen. But because of the courage of SEIU and Fight for 15 and thousands of workers who stood up and told the American people that we are human beings. We cannot raise our families. We cannot pay the rent. We cannot put gas in the car on $8 or $9 an hour. We need a living wage, and that living wage is $15 an hour. And you stood up in cities all across this country, and the American people and politicians began to listen to you. And state after state said, you know what? These workers are right. We're going to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. Right now, because of the efforts of SEIU and Fight for 15 and all of you, 7 states in this country have now passed legislation to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And a couple of months ago, the relevant committee in the United States House of Representatives passed out of that committee legislation to raise the federal minimum wage to $7.25 an hour. We have got to do everything we can to make sure the House passes that legislation, and that when it comes to the Senate, that the Republicans give us the votes that we need to pass that legislation. This is the bottom line. Today, we live in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. But tens of millions of workers don't know that because they're working longer hours for lower wages. And we end up with 3 families in America, 3 families owning more wealth than the bottom half of the American people. Does anybody think that that is moral or that is right? And the only way workers are going to make real progress and be treated with the respect and dignity they deserve is when they have a union. And we've got legislation in that says if 50% of the workers in an agency plus one sign a card, they're going to have a union. And that legislation also says that any company that refuses to negotiate a fair contract, first contract with the union, they will be severely penalized. And our legislation also repeals Section 14B of the Taft-Hartley Act, which allows for so-called right-to-work legislation. So let me conclude by just thanking you. You are, again, you are heroes. You are heroines, and as a result of your efforts, millions and millions of workers are now enjoying better wages, and the momentum is with us to make sure that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, any worker who works 40 hours a week will not live in poverty. So thank you all very much.
So that was Bernie Sanders talking to some of the workers, that was, I believe, in Dallas, that are striking right now for a higher minimum wage at McDonald's to basically call out McDonald's and get systematic change with sexual harassment of many of the female workers that is rampant at McDonald's, Burger King, other places, as well as verbal abuse, violence that have been perpetrated against these workers. These workers are working in some cases for the national minimum wage, $7.25. I've seen that in Alabama when I was down in Alabama interviewing fast food workers in 2017. And I've seen that here in New York, speaking with people that might make $8.50, $9.50. It's $15 in New York now, but it's not all the way there for all workers yet. So why I think this is important is, obviously, I think it's important that Bernie do this because it's the right thing to do. But why did Hillary Clinton lose in 2016? There are many reasons. She's corrupt, uninspiring, didn't go to Wisconsin. We can go on and on. She had 5% less African Americans come out for her. She had 5% less age 18 to 29 come out for her. And she had 6% less Latinos come out for her. All those categories I'm comparing to Obama in 12%. So she had 5%, 6% less in those major categories. Black, Latino, age 18 to 29 come out for her as compared to Obama in 2012. Well, who works at fast food shops predominantly? Obviously, older people do too. There's a lot of retirees who can't afford to live on Social Security. They're suddenly working at McDonald's. But who do you see at McDonald's and Burger King and other fast food restaurants? You see a lot of young people who can't get better work. You see a lot of minorities who can't get better work. You see a lot of poor white people who can't get better work. All the demographics that Hillary Clinton suffered with are in that fast food. And it's not only fast food industry. You're talking Walmart. You're talking a lot of different low-wage workplaces where their corporate, behemoth, plutocratic, oligarchic parent companies, talking to you, Walmart, we're talking to McDonald's, we're talking to a lot, refuse to allow them to unionize. So you have Bernie out there. We'll talk about the other ones who are suddenly out there fighting for 15. You have Bernie out there, and he's been consistent out there, speaking directly to the voters who could put him over the top against somebody like Donald Trump. You think these people are going to vote for Donald Trump? No. But do you think these people are going to be so inspired to come out for Joe Biden? Because I don't see Joe Biden out there today with the $15 workers. I've been looking. I don't see Kamala Harris either out there today with the fight for 15 workers. That's not an accident. If they wanted to be there, they'd be there. So you got Bernie Sanders fighting not only so they could have a $15 minimum wage, not only to end the sexual harassment and violence, but to push the right to unionize. That is important. And, you know, Joe Biden, he calls himself Uncle Joe, and I'm a union man. Well, Joe Biden's not out there pushing for Walmart workers to be able to unionize. Joe Biden's not out there for McDonald's workers to unionize. As far as I know, neither is Kamala Harris. Bernie Sanders is the main candidate that has stressed unionization. He has also unionized his campaign. So when you look at that Rust Belt, what has happened to that Rust Belt that defeated Hillary Clinton and elected Donald Trump? Their jobs have been offshored. Their unions have been shrinking and decimated. NAFTA. So Bernie Sanders is pressing all the right buttons. Yes, there's these polls. I'm not going to get into today's ridiculous poll from Monmouth, which again oversampled older people and undersampled younger people to show that Joe Biden is crushing Bernie Sanders. I've already reported quite a few videos showing you why, yeah, they're getting to that number because they're oversampling older people and undersampling young people. Not difficult to get that to get to that number if that's how you're going to do it. But I think this is really smart by Bernie Sanders, and I also think he could compare and contrast on that debate stage. Hey, Joe, were you out there with the McDonald's workers? Were you out there with the Verizon workers that I was trying to get better pay, help them unionize? You out there with the communications workers of America? You out there with Walmart? Have you fought Amazon and won? I mean, Bernie Sanders is the only one on that debate stage that has that story to tell because he's been doing it consistently. And let me tell you something. It's a very popular story with progressives. It's also a popular story with some of the people that watch Fox News. There's a not so small, it might surprise you, but there's a not small part of the Republican Party that is blue collar. They are, into, the social issues like abortion and things like that, but they're pro-life. They're into being anti-immigrant and this and that, but they're mostly economic. They would, and I know Republicans like this, they would vote for someone that they don't agree with on all social issues, but they think has their best interest and is more with the blue-collar worker like they are. Want to know why? Because they just did it. You think a lot of those blue-collar workers and a lot of those Trump voters loved Donald Trump? Do you think a lot of them agreed with the way he carries on? Do you think a lot of them agreed with all of his positions? A lot of them didn't agree with him saying, let's ban the Muslims, let's do this. But he spoke to their economic anxiety. They spoke, he spoke to them, it was lies coming out of his mouth, but he spoke to what they feel has been missing from the Democratic Party. He spoke to basically their feeling of abandonment, from Michigan to Wisconsin to Ohio to Pennsylvania. I think that's why Donald Trump did pretty well in New Hampshire during the Republican primary, because a lot of these places is the core of deindustrialization. But the way to combat Donald Trump is to be on the total opposite side of the political spectrum. So Donald Trump's not for a $15 minimum wage. Donald Trump's not for stronger unions and more companies unionizing. Donald Trump's not for ending stock buybacks. Donald Trump is not for any of these actual, not just progressive things, but populist things, real populism. And Bernie is the only one that will be able to contrast with him on that debate stage. But first, it comes down to Bernie contrasting with these Fauxgressives. And here's just one of them. But, you got Washington State Governor Jay Inslee. Suddenly he's progressive. And he's out there with the McDonald's workers striking. Democratic presidential candidate Washington Governor Jay Inslee attended a strike held by McDonald's employees in Chicago on Thursday afternoon. Look at that. Jay is with the people. Oh, that's the whole story. They just show pictures, I guess. So, why do I have a problem with this? And by the way, I like that Jay Inslee is, good on climate change, but that's not the only issue that we vote on. And Bernie Sanders is very good on climate change. But, does Jay Inslee think that maybe he expects it because most reporters are lazy and don't actually look too in-depth of anyone's record? But Jay Inslee is the governor of Washington State. Well, Washington State, it's not even a government anymore. It's an employee of Amazon. Amazon runs Washington State. Amazon runs Seattle. Amazon has bought off all of the politicians. How do we know this? Well, besides the fact that Status Quo was just in Seattle a few weeks ago, bringing you in-the-field reporting, Jay Inslee has allowed Amazon to create a homeless wasteland in Seattle. What do I mean by that? Well, rent has gone up 70% in Seattle in 5 years. Why is that? Well, when Amazon has run of the city, when Amazon is able, Amazon employs a lot of six-figure salary. That's great for them. It does create, restaurants and new business in the area, but it also hikes up the cost of living. So yes, they're able to bring in more upper middle class people that make six figures and higher to live in Seattle, but it pushes out working class people. It's not only happening in Seattle, it's happening everywhere. It pushes out those people that work at McDonald's or Burger King or Walmart or Target or fill in the blank of low wage work. None of them can afford to live in Seattle anymore. A lot of them can't afford to live in Washington State anymore. And it's not just the fast food workers. There are people that make 60,000, 75,000. It's hard to afford to live in Seattle when the rent keeps going up that high. But this is the price. You know, you got the Jay Insleys of the world that on one end are out there fighting for 15 with their workers, but in reality, as governor, Amazon, the City Council of Seattle was about to pass something called a head tax. And this head tax would have charged Amazon $250 a head. Not just Amazon, Microsoft, other companies like it, $250 a head to go towards affordable housing, because affordable housing has become non-existent because companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Boeing are responsible, yes, for creating higher wage jobs, but for also pricing out lower wage workers. So are we just going to have just a country where, you know, when one class goes up, when one set of people with certain skills are able to get six-figure jobs in tech, well, that means then we're just basically going to make the city a tale of two cities, where those people could live and thrive and eat at the restaurants and drink at the bars and, you know, be merry and yuppie and enjoy life, while the rest of the city blocks are littered with homeless people in Seattle, where people who are Seattle natives can no longer live there. Does this sound familiar to you if you live in San Francisco or Los Angeles or Portland or Chicago or DC or New York, Philadelphia, Cleveland? So, Jay Inslee, spare me. You've taken a lot of money from Amazon, and you have allowed them to have run at the place. And that city council vote that would have charged Amazon $250 a head, it's pennies to them, got killed because of Jeff Bezos and Amazon killing it. And that would have gone towards lifting a lot of those homeless people off the streets into affordable housing, on making more affordable housing for the people getting priced out of places like Seattle. So you also have Julian Castro out there fighting for 15 with people. Well, as HUD secretary, he wasn't exactly fighting for lower income people who need affordable housing. He was selling off foreclosed homes. Where? To Wall Street. But he's out there fighting for 15. These Fauxgressives, they're so arrogant because they don't think anyone is going to look. Status quo is looking, baby. We will expose you. So that's how you know. Bernie Sanders has been consistent. Those two have not. I did not see Joe Biden out there today. And by the way, you have Nancy Pelosi, you know, doing it's all theatrics now. Nancy Pelosi is now giving press conferences every day to basically get like under the skin or toupee of Donald Trump and get him angry. And, you know, CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times and all the pundit class and all the fake all the fake journalists, they love it because it's just, you know, Trump versus Pelosi. Let's get the boxing match sound effects going. It's conflict, it's sensationalism, it's lazy journalism, it's not even journalism. But Nancy Pelosi gives this press conference today on, you know, Trump is involved in a cover-up and all this stuff. They're still, you know, beating the drums of Russiagate till they're blue in the face. She didn't mention the events going on all day for the fight for 15. Nope. Didn't mention any of it. This is the opposition party that doesn't mention when thousands and thousands and thousands of workers are protesting against one of the biggest corporations in the world. Why is that? Maybe because their donors don't want to highlight it. So I'm supposed to cheer Nancy Pelosi and fighting Trump and his cover-up and all these things, when I just know if they retake power, it's just going to be the same old, same old. I don't want same old, same old. Can you guys afford same old, same old? If you can't afford same old, let me know right now. Put it in the super chat. I'd like to know, do you think the way to defeat Trump is to have Nancy Pelosi standing up there, is to have these Fauxgressives out fighting for 15 when it's going to be revealed that they're total hypocrites and that they've been Julian Castro's policies and Jay Inslee's policies and Pete Buttigieg's policies have been stomping on these workers for years? We need something progressive. We need a contrast to Donald Trump, not Republican light.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statusquo.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.